This is You're So Right, the podcast that deals with Davidson County, the state of Tennessee, and issues that affect us right here at home. I'm your host, Lonnie Spivak, and today I'm here with Metro Council member from District 23, Tom Druffel. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here, Lonnie. Thank you.
Can you give the viewers just kind of a little info on your background? When were you elected to the council? Kind of what your district is, and I know you do meetings a lot in your district. And let's just kind of let people know who you are, they can get on your mail list, and that kind of stuff. And then we'll kind of get into the nitty gritty on what's going on in the Metro Council.
Glad to. Yeah, my district, first of all, is District 23. It's Belle Meade, West Meade, Hillwood Warner Park area.
Okay.
A pretty concise little area that we have in West Nashville. Come back from the hotel business. I was with Marriott Hotels 18 years and IHG 21 years. It was on my wish list to get into this kind of thing. I just happened to work into it. My primary mission is working with at-risk youth and trying to come up with ideas and more strategies that improves their lives and opportunities.
And when were you first elected to the Metro Council?
Well, let me see, 6 years ago, on my second term, halfway done, and a year and a half left on second term.
So before we get into some of the zoning stuff, one of the things that Metro Council is facing is the state law that said that the Metro Council could not exceed 20 members. And that's something that the Metro Council has been, I don't know how strongly you guys have been discussing, but there was a lawsuit by Metro, which the Chancellery Court here ruled for Metro, and then it went to the State Appeals Court, and the Appeals Court ruled for the state. And so now we're waiting for the Supreme Court to either hear the case or not hear the case. So we're kind of, as of right now, Metro Council will have to reduce its size from 40 to 20 members at the most by the time we have our next election cycle in 27. Can you just kind of let us know where we are in that process? If there's any progress at all whatsoever with reducing the council size.
Yeah, and if I got this right, I talked to Chief Dietz, who's our legal director, and we understand that the Supreme Court will come in February, if I got this right, and then hopefully understand the interest of getting this done quickly. I think all of us are excited about trying to understand whether, number one, they'll take it, number two, what they're going to do with it, because it'll be a major change for most of us and how we're going to look at our districts and who's going to want to run the next term, right? We got to figure out.
Right. And so assuming that the current legal status is that Metro does have to reduce its size to 20 members, how is the council looking at that makeup? Because really it could be any number up to 20. I don't imagine the Metro Council would go with 15 or 12 or 6 or whatever that number might be. I'm assuming they'll do 20. Are they looking at larges and districts, all districts, kind of? You and I have talked about this before. I think we're at 17 districts with 3 at larges. I know there's not been any formal votes on it, but.
Yeah, that was an accelerated process. we thought it was right before the last election, and we were all like, what are we going to do? And we all...
Well, that was ambitious, I'll have to say.
That was a little bit too close to our election. We looked at a 1, 3, and a 5 at large, and each, of course, then changes the district size that each of those districts would be. And I think the 1 didn't seem to make sense. The 3 and 5, I think, had some support for those. This council will have to sort of see what everybody wants to do with that.
Yeah, I personally don't think there should be at-larges. I really just think there should be someone who represents that district, and that's the way it is. There shouldn't be somebody in the council who has power over let's just say you're District 23, and right now we have 5 at-large members. They technically can overrule you. Somebody could come submit something to you and you go, I just don't think that's right for our district. They can then go to the at-larges and get an at-large member to submit that same thing, bypassing the will for your district. I just really think that it's better if those things are just done local. Now, I personally don't care if we're 40 members or 20 members. That to me doesn't make any difference. But now that the state has passed a law saying that it can't exceed 20 members, I think that's kind of how it's going to have to be.
Yeah, I suspect that the Supreme Court will be consistent with the appellate court, but we'll wait to see. And I think all of us are anxious. Everybody's waiting for this to drop because
it's been pretty exciting. The one thing that we still don't know is you're currently term limited, so you couldn't run again now for your district. You could run for it at large, but we don't know. There's not been a legal opinion that if once there's a new council, like the current council is dissolved and there's a new process for council with new districts and everything, whether or not you could then run again for another district. So we don't have a legal opinion on that. I have an opinion, but it's not a legal one.
I'm not sure I'm always on the legal side, but we don't know. Yeah,
Right.
I think
there's a lot that we don't know.
I think what I heard last time from the grapevine, but who knows because it never carried through, was that we would not be able to run again within our district.
But it's a different district.
But it's, within the larger district, we'll have to just wait and see. I think there's a value for allowing that to occur for some of the, as you look at the zoning bills that are starting to come up, that, our big guardrail is the council person that can protect their district. And I think that gives at least a transition component to add value so that we would have that guardrail in place for a little bit.
Now, everybody who has opened their mail recently, who owns property in Davidson County, has gotten the invoice from the property assessor saying, you owe us a bunch more money than you did last year. And I think that's made a lot of people more aware of what's going on at the local level than they were. People are going, not just businesses, but people in the residential areas are going, how am I going to afford an extra $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 a year in property taxes on top of what I'm already paying, which has been pretty high here in Davidson County. And so a lot of people are now really paying attention more so than what they were to what the Metro Council is doing. And now we have this big push for upzoning all of Davidson County. And on the forefront is 2 new zoning proposals and an update to the DADU, which is the detached dwelling units. Can you kind of let the viewers know kind of what the new proposals are, where we are in the process of the whole thing, and then we can get into details, what does that mean? How far am I from the, thoroughfares, that kind of stuff. We can get into the nitty gritty for it, but just kind of give us an overview of where we are.
Well, I think I'd comment on the taxes. I was one of 3 to 5 people that was against not necessarily a tax increase. I think we have to have it. It is probably 60% of what we get our revenue, but the reality is taking one of the largest increases in neighborhoods that really couldn't afford it. In our neighborhood, you take a 2,200 square foot ranch, and because there's a lot of new development with houses that are now worth $3 to $5 million.
The comps have gone
yeah, you're stuck. You're absolutely stuck in this where you had done nothing wrong, you lived there a long time, and all of a sudden your taxes are now.
And now there are things like if you're a senior, there are things where you can freeze your property tax. Is that right?
Right, up to 62. I think if you can make up to 62,000, as I understand.
And this is if you're 65 or older. Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's. I think I got those right.
Okay.
And so that does give some option, but it's probably not enough for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Right after that occurred, and everybody's getting their tax bill, I've gotten a lot of comments, emails, phone calls to say, we're done.
We're moving.
This is our second large tax increase. In our neighborhood, I believe it's a 45% tax increase, and that was on top of the 28% back in 2000. So now,
you're in the urban services. See, I'm in the general services district, and I feel like I got hit double hard because they just did away with the tax. The people who were in the general services district who don't have their trash picked up and that kind of stuff, we got bumped up to the same tax rate as the general services. So we got double taxed because we still pay for our own trash pickup and water and the sewage and all that other stuff. We pay for separate, which, didn't sit that well with me either.
Yeah, they had a study that came out that said that the general service district wasn't paying their fair share. So it came at a bad time, I think, because the economy has been teetering and had some issues. And so, there are things that we need to do in the city that as we've grown to support, but I don't think we need to do it at that level. I felt like that was overstating what we needed. And so, when we look at affordability, ironically, we're talking about affordability, but then we're raising everybody's property taxes so much where some people simply can't afford it. And I don't think they see that that people are aware or consistent at a political level that their concerns are being met.
And I had attended the public comment meeting at Bellevue, at the high school in Bellevue, back when they had the public comment opened. And I asked them, the guys at planning, if they thought that the high property taxes had an effect on our high property value cost. And their answer was, I assume so, but that's not something we've looked at, is basically what they've told us. And I'm like, that's probably pretty lame of an answer for the guys from planning who know for a fact that the property taxes have a big impact on what people pay to live in Nashville.
Well, and I don't think it was transparent in terms of they said it was due to the higher appraisal amount, but we still have the opportunity to change the per diem. So yes, it is, but we still control the per diem. The mayor and the council still make that decision of what your property taxes are going to be.
I think they have the inability to regulate what they want to spend money on. Where we budget, their budget is, well, we want to do all of this program stuff, but then we also need to do our sewers and our infrastructure, and they're not really picking an either or. They're saying we want it all, and they're just putting that on the backs of the taxpayers at this moment.
Yeah, I believe so too. I believe that we have aspirational budgets for the MNPS, and I was chair of education when we did this. We needed to get the teachers' pay up to a significant level.
Agreed.
And I was 2 years in a row. I was like all over, these really great budgets, and we're thinking, well, we're getting to a platform maybe that we don't need to make that significant change. Then we come along and make, a pretty significant change in MNPS and everybody's budget. And I totally agree that we have a lot of great people working for us. But, I think it should be a more aggressive approach instead of all at once and sort of saying, okay, we can do this at once and just, that's it.
My thing is, I feel like we really need to pay our teachers well. I feel like we have a high number of administrators to in-classroom teachers, which is affecting the quality of education that we have here in Nashville. But I also don't think we need $350 million high schools. And I don't think the buildings should be as luxurious as they are for what their purpose is. I mean, I'm not saying that that our kids should be going to school without heat and air, but I don't think they need to be 5-star hotel quality in order for them to meet their function. And at a time where we're asking the citizens of Nashville to pony up more and more, it seems like every year now.
Oh, amen, Lonnie. It is wrong that during this time, and especially when you have people that have lived their whole lives, and now they have to pay more and more, and they can't do it. Of course, I'm obviously a senior, and you're starting to look around and go, I get it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you add $150 a month in taxes, property taxes on top of other things, and all the inflation that's occurred over the last few years, it really catches up with a lot of people fast.
When I got my bill, I think I'm paying nearly $400 a month for the privilege of owning a house in Davidson County.
Yeah, it's
and I've had the conversation with my wife, and I'm sure a lot of families have, that we can move 2 miles down the street to Williamson County and pay a fraction of that, or spend the money that we're spending for the privilege of owning our home in Davidson County on the value of the property itself, to where we're not really paying any more, but we're getting more value from the land than what we have in Davidson.
Yeah, in our neighborhood in West Meade, literally houses are converting overnight.
McMansions
it's probably
overnight.
25 to 30 at a time. The numbers are staggering. And when you talk to the people that have lived there their lives, they said, well, the costs are enormous. And I can go to Williamson County, I can go to these other counties and live pretty comfortably.
I mean, if I owned a house, say, off Brook Hollow or Breslin or someplace like that, I would take the $3 million and go buy somewhere else.
Yeah, well, they're buying the land for probably $800,000 to $1.2 million. So you'll, without having to fix up your house, you got a 2,000 square foot ranch. Don't have to do anything to catch it up. And here you get the money, and then you can go to some place with a better tax structure. Mm-hmm. And it's transforming our neighborhoods. The culture of our neighborhoods is starting to change quite a bit.
That's a good segue. Let's talk about that culture and these new zoning proposals. So there are two that I know, RN and RL. Tell us what those are.
Well, it gives you an option. It gives you a multifamily option in essence, or allowing to build multiple units within a certain.
Okay. So an RN is like residential neighborhood, right? And that's like 600 feet off of like a main thoroughfare or something like that.
Yeah, the way they designate it as an RN, which is a residential neighborhood, is you can build 1 unit per 5,000 square feet. For an RL is 1 unit per 6,000 square feet.
Okay.
So let's say you have an acre. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So 5,000 into 40,000 is approximately 8. So where there was one single family home, you can now build potentially 8 housing units within that place. And so of course the conversation is, and the argument is, well, we're not eliminating your single family home, right? Well, no, but you're going to build.
Yeah, but if somebody's
4 units, 6
let's just
units.
say my brother-in-law lives he's in your district,
right?
And he has a plot of land that's a little over an acre, and let's just say that his neighbor decides to sell their land, which is pretty similar to his. The developer that buys that acre, if this passes, could build up to 8 units, 8 individual housing structures on that land.
Correct.
And do you want to keep your acre single family home right next to that?
And Lonnie, you hit it right on the head, right? And so you're not eliminating my house, but do I want to live next to 2 houses? I have 3 houses.
I could have 8 neighbors on either side of me, each with up to 5 family members in each house. So I could have, up to 40 people living on either side of me.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That's, the concern is exactly what you're saying.
And I don't think there's any regulation for how much parking those properties have to have.
No, and it's minimal. And so what you're looking at is how is this going to funnel into the street? Who's going to park there if you go to the Nations and some of these places? There is no parking left, right? I mean, you're really in the danger of just having to walk from a longer location. So some of the supporting mechanisms, the structures of infrastructure making this work, isn't in place to make this work effectively. And that's a lot of what my concern has been is two things. The process has gone way too fast. When in a year and a half ago, we asked when this, nest would eliminate single family, and it was like, we're all jumping up like, what in the heck is this? Came out of the blue, nobody anticipated. And we came up with a unanimously passed resolution that said, infrastructure and zoning, let's put this together and let's put a comprehensive plan together. And so here we come back, and unified housing study is at the same time. And so now we're coming back and looking at this and thinking, okay, there's going to be some kind of plan that provides affordability, attainability, and provides an infrastructure platform to make all this work. So when we developed this recommendation to come back with, from the planning department, to come up with some very specific plans, I was at least thinking it was going to be a comprehensive plan. We very much said affordability is a big issue. We would like to see something on affordability. We would like to see the infrastructure support. But what we've gotten is we've gotten the sort of you're ready, aim, fire. We're sort of fire, aim, ready now. Here's. They
didn't do any of the infrastructure study and all the zoning.
So we got the zoning recommendations, and that which includes DADU and the zoning types. And now we have, we're going to get to the infrastructure down the road, and the infrastructure is going to drive a map of where the preferred places are going to be. And so I was in strategic plan for 100 years, and you realize this isn't what we're looking for. We're looking for a comprehensive plan that says all of this. And I think a lot of people don't recognize if we do it without a well-disciplined approach, it's going to cost us. So if all of a sudden these zoning types go into the middle of neighborhoods, which a Metro Council person can approve, then it's going to cause more cost for infrastructure, because you can imagine 8-unit areas in a single-family home neighborhood, all of a sudden getting a lot of intense zoning, and we're going to have to get water, sewer. I mean, how do you get the sidewalks? How do you get them into transportation? Because our future, we know, trying to lean on cars forever is not going to work. So they have to be along arterial roads. So if we don't do this in the right order, we're stuck. We're just going to continue to get in a more deeper shape from an infrastructure perspective.
So we saw that lack of planning, and we're about to see its ultimate impact with what happened in the Nations, where the council member came in and, without really talking to his constituents, who really didn't know what was going on until it had already passed.
I know.
So in that area, for those who don't know, the council member pushed in getting rid of the single-family home zoning to where all of the land now is zoned for multifamily zones. So anywhere there was a single-family home zone, they can now put multiple units in that same space, where we've seen a little bit of that upzoning, but it was just like one lot would have 2 tall and skinnies. I think now they can do 4 or more on that.
Yeah, that is one of the, when you look at this, and this is what probably causes a lot of issue, because they're saying the guardrail is your council person. Well, and said, well, a lot of people are telling me, well, they won't happen in your district as long as the council person doesn't agree. But there's a perfect example. What I saw is the council person really not getting full support. I think there was 52 that in a group that was for it, and he had a petition of 1,000 against it. But he carried it through, and everybody approved it through the planning commission. So one of the biggest guardrails is concerning, because if that Metro Council person decides he's or she is going to be, king of their neighborhood, and they have a better idea than everybody else, now you're stuck with
right.
that.
And there was an effort to recall Councilman Hallman, but I don't think I mean, the bar is just so high to recall a member of the Metro Council these days. I don't know how that'd be successful.
I think that, as I understand it, the numbers are pretty significant. 15% of potential voting members, but when you look at that number was actually higher than the people that actually voted for and against him. So the bar is so high that I think that is really a difficult thing. But clearly the emotions, when you're talking about your home, your neighborhood, your friends, your family, we seem to be missing the really personal character of what we're doing. We think we're making great decisions, but we're really not feeling the pain that some people might have. And I think that's my concern. I have people in our West Meade neighborhood, they're second generation, close to their brother and their sister, and all of a sudden you can start to do this, and it will quickly change the character of your neighborhood. Now I have another year and a half, and I'm hoping that someone that will replace me, we're going to work pretty hard that we'll have the same values for character. But I got a feeling some people in some of our neighborhoods are going to wake up one day and all of a sudden there's going to be some changes, and they may not know about it. And that, transparency is one of the things I worked on in a couple of my amendments. I've opposed this only because I think there's a better process that we can really work harder. And I think if everybody could really see that here's what the infrastructure is going to be, and here's where it's going to be mapped to, and this is how it's going to work. And the thing that nobody's talking about, and I keep telling everybody, it's not what they're saying, it's what we're not saying.
Right.
So who's going to execute the plan? Well, it's developers, and developers are not bad people, they're business people. But I was a business person, I'm going to go with the highest profit.
If I was a developer, I was to say I could, even though let's just say I want to build, buy some land and redevelop it in Bellevue, and I went to Sherry Weiner and said, Sherry, I want to do these multiplexes, and I'd like to have these done with the new RL zoning. She could go and go, yeah, I think that's a good idea, and then submit that, even though it's outside of the area they were originally planning for that zone to work, and it would pass. I mean, the council would give her deference, and it would pass. And then all of a sudden you have this was this single family home or two single family homes where they've got multiplexes that are 4 stories tall and have 50 people in them, or 50 families, not people.
It's mainly in the urban service district that they're doing it, but I'm sure there's
but there's nothing that prevents
it's nothing to prevent it.
So we've talked about the RN zoning. What's the RL? What's the difference between the RN and the RL?
Well, it's a little different. It's the residential limited. So actually, I might have gotten that back, where the RN is 1 per 6,000 square feet, and the RL is 1 per 5,000. So it's meant to be closer to an arterial road. And the goal in the mapping is that the RLs would be within 0.8 of a mile within an arterial, which then it creates a higher density along arterials. Fundamentally makes sense. So, I mean, when you look at all
those
these
units can be a little taller, if I remember correctly, right. And it's a lot designed for multiplexes and quadplexes, and really the more density towards the main transit thoroughfares is what they're looking at.
That's right, and it makes sense. That's where you go back to asking, wouldn't it be smart to have a map based on infrastructure first? Because
we got Nashville next.
Well, a lot of terms are being used, like the Unified Housing Strategy, fundamentally says what we're trying to say, but this process is disjointed, I think. Where there is nothing, nor is anybody admitting there's affordability in this process. They're looking at this is going to get what's called the missing middle. It's sort of a missing middle transition component, and it's going to percolate down into affordability. Everything that we've looked at in some of these other studies, it doesn't really work that way. When the land cost is as high as ours, it just doesn't work.
And the property tax for those units is super high. You're not gonna get the cost of those units down to a point where where they're thinking that people can afford them. Like, I have a daughter who's 24, lives in East Nashville, cannot afford to live by herself, has 2 roommates, to where they can afford to live in Nashville.
Right.
And that is a common theory. And when she was going through the process of trying to find an apartment, they wanted the people who rented those apartments to have an annual salary that was like 3 times what it cost to rent the thing. And like, I would have had problems renting the apartment. And like, how are they expecting the missing middle to even find a place?
Yeah, I don't. This goes back to process, right? You know, when you're in business, you have a business plan, and it's, you know, you have fundamentals, data, and information that supports. Here's what's going to happen. Here are goals that we're going to have, and here's what we think will happen. I don't see those, and that's again part of the concerns I have. I think I think it's whole process, or this whole desire is apolitical. Everybody wants affordability. We're all talking about it. We're all talking about attainability. We've got to do something. But what I see is that we really don't have the comprehensive process to get us there.
We don't know how much it'll cost to fix the infrastructure, like the water and the sewage, to support the number of people that they say they want. We don't know what kind of traffic it's going to support. We don't know how many schools are going to be needed, what schools are going to cost. The only thing we know is that they want to upzone the areas.
Oh, I know.
But we don't know anything else.
Well, you think about it. We're close to, technically, the master plan for multimodal was December, January. I hear it's not really there yet. And so the stormwater master plan is not due till 2027, which to me is probably one of the big issues that nobody talks about. Is if you were in the flood of 2010, you recognize if you increase density, and you can just drive through the Nations area and you can see there are lakes in there. We increase the density where it's not supported.
The water has nowhere to go.
People are going to lose houses. They're going to lose people's lives like they did in 2010. So my concern is we keep moving fast, and I don't know why we need to, right? Mm-hmm. Here we are, December. We started this process, not well vetted in my opinion, because there weren't many people involved early on. And why not give it 3 to 6 months to get these studies in and mapping, and then talk about, hey, this RL works here, and we can understand it. Plus, if you're in a community, you can now look at that community and go, okay, I get it. Over here on the arterial, maybe those 2 blocks work. I'm 6 blocks in. I have no sidewalk. I'll never get there.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think, and I've discussed this with you, is I think it's perfectly appropriate for the Metro Council to do the groundwork at this point to say, this is the way that we think Nashville should go. But within 2 years, we'll be looking at a totally new council structure with larger districts, with council members that are really going to represent probably 40% more people than they're currently representing. That's right. And we'd want whatever that plan is to represent the Nashville then, what that government looks like, in my opinion.
Well, that's the dangerous part is so, what the guardrail that a district has is your council person.
Right.
So let's say I get the nation's council person that likes density, and it's not consistent. Once you enlarge those districts, you're going to get characteristics dissimilar to you in other areas, right? And all of a sudden, that person is all about density, and our district is not. And we appreciate what we're doing. That council person can then override the overall interest of your neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And that's what's a little dangerous. I like the larger districts only from a standpoint of a better balance to the mayor, because I think it's very hard to balance out with everybody's priorities and the mayor's priorities. But when it comes down to protecting your neighborhood, I like the smaller districts because now you have a unique subset that you can control your council person or at least help,
Right.
be involved with your, most council people will generally be sensitive to their needs. Some were clearly have not. The prior council would have never accepted this. I mean, I got to say,
agree.
I was in the prior council, and if someone in a group of people that would come forward and say, we have these level of concerns, the at large, all of us would just say, go back and work on it.
One of the things I think I'd like to see is a charter amendment. It would have to be something that was pushed from the council, a charter amendment that changed the way our budgetary process works. Because being in council, pretty much the mayor's budget gets approved one way or the other. Either it's the mayor's budget gets approved because you guys vote on it, the mayor's budget gets approved because nobody votes on it, or the mayor submits a budget, Metro Council tinkers with it a little bit here, a little bit there, because you guys don't have your own staff, your own budgetary system, and then that gets approved. So really, in one form or fashion, the mayor's budget's getting largely approved. And the council really has no way to push back on that. I really think that there should be a charter amendment that if the council cannot agree on the mayor's budget, then the previous budget should stay in effect until there's a budget that Metro Council can agree on and vote as a unit. Yes, this is our budget.
Yeah, I've been in budget finance for 6 years, so I've gotten a good view of all this process. So it's the mayor's budget is recommended, then the finance chair's budget it can be a substitute budget, and those are the only two budgets that are amendable. Okay, so when you think of 40 people in there and they are not amendable, so Councilor Johnson brought in a substitute, but of course it wasn't amendable. Therefore, it has no chance of any recognition. So it becomes really hard to, the mayor pretty much sets the foundation like they did last time. And so in both cases, it actually went up from the finance.
I think the actual council's budget had a larger tax increase than the mayor's budget.
Well, that's right. I mean, the last time it went from 32 to 36, and this one went up higher. And so you're looking at this thinking, there's just, in my opinion, some people are just not, they're missing that a lot of people and neighbors struggle financially. And they know it, but they don't seem to get the idea that if you own a house, you really can't afford these large increases. Now, there are priorities and there's things we got to do, but I think we got to look at ourselves internally. I presented something my first year when we had that first budget increase, and we were there till 6 a.m. And naively, I thought, well, I'm going to do a few things and like a business. So I suggested a zero-based budget every 5 years. A zero-based budget means you got to re-budget from fundamentals. So, being in a business where I had a lot of hotels, you realize eventually people inflate, become more productive, but they never recognize that because they got the money.
Right.
So eventually you got to sort of bring it back to reality of you're probably not needing everything you get. I'm not sure that's the right answer, but I do believe there's got to be a performance metrics, and Mayor Cooper had that. I don't think it's still around, and I was involved in that for a short time. Is our performance in our departments equal or better to other cities, et cetera? If I came to you as saying here's my budget and we're outperforming everybody and here's what we got to do, I'd feel a little bit more at ease. Not that I'm happy with the budget. But there's got to be a return. I guess I'm too business oriented in some ways. Yeah. It should be a return of what we're doing for what we're putting in.
Yeah, really government should be making our lives easier, and Metro has increasingly made our lives more difficult.
We haven't managed it, and the process is we would be out of business if we were a business at this point in time. We've allowed the infrastructure, the growth without infrastructure. One thing I'm working on right now is, if you have a traffic plan for an apartment complex, say there's two of them, they only give you, to my knowledge, put a traffic plan to get out of your apartment complex. But let's say down the road is a light 3 blocks away. Well, there's 300 here, 200 here, 500 here. They don't account for the extra 1,000 that are hitting that light.
Yeah.
So I'm really now working on a bill that says you gotta, if it's a D or F intersection road, you gotta start looking at the cumulative effect. And that's what's gotten us in trouble. We keep looking at these one-offs. So planning department says, well, they got a traffic plan. Well, the traffic plan is a curb cut for maybe 30 feet so they can cut over here, but they don't talk about the cumulative effect of everything happening. And the same thing with all infrastructure. There's a cumulative effect, and we're narrowly looking at each development, not looking at the big picture, which has, I think, gotten us in trouble. And that's where, when you look at this is a better discussion when you are like RN and RL about how do we manage our density increase. We haven't done it well in the past. Obviously, I mean, we're one of the worst cities now in traffic congestion, and stormwater is taxed. So are we going to do it better next time, which I'm not getting the feeling because they don't want to have the infrastructure report first. Are we just going to keep going down the pattern and allowing development to occur at a pattern that's really going to make it worse for our city? And to your point, are we better off or worse off? I don't know anybody that thinks we're better off.
Right. So we've talked a little bit about RN. We've talked about RL. We haven't talked about the changes that they're wanting to implement for the DADU, the detached additional dwelling units. What's traditionally called an in-law house or apartment. So why don't you tell us where we are with that whole process?
Yeah, both these bills are going to be coming up on December 4th for final reading.
Oh, gosh.
With the amendments. And, we've listened to public comment, pretty strong public comment with very specific concerns. I tried to defer it just to give us another 4 to 6 weeks to look at some of the infrastructure. It didn't work, so it passed. So now we're going to look at the RNRL. There's several amendments and a couple of substitutes, and there's probably more that will come in. But the DADU is actually a little bit more concerning. The potential of a DADU is decent if we could control it a little bit more, but with the DADU, there doesn't even have to be a planning commission approval. So you could have based on your size of land, up to 1,250 square feet.
So this is everywhere in the general services district that is currently zoned.
Urban service district.
The urban service district.
Yeah. So you can have up to, it depends on, it's rated by size of lot, and then you could have up to a 1,250 square foot DADU. So you can imagine a DADU in that would allow 5 people to live there with currently there's nothing that says there's a parking need. So you can have, 3 or 4 in a row, and you can imagine 25 people now living on the street that weren't there before. And the hard part is it's gentle ideas, great. I have a special needs son. It's a great thing to potentially put him a grandfather suite. It's not so gentle because what happens is, again, developers will use it as a tool to make as much money as possible.
Right.
Don't deny that.
The current rule, I think, that is there is that if a home builds a DADU, then they can't be subdivided. They'll always be sold together. At least that's the current law.
Right.
Doesn't mean a future council won't come by and change that.
Yeah. Well, the way it's structured now, it allows you to apply for it. And so why not? Why not just give you, because in the future, if this passes, everybody can start building them without any planning approval.
Yeah, they don't need planning. They'll need permits, but no planning. And so when I ask planning, they're like, well, currently 13,000 properties in Davidson County have the DADU zoning. And I think they said about 10% of those have actually built the DADU.
Yeah.
But it was a big process to build the additional unit. And then I asked them, well, what is this current, how many properties are we talking about with this new proposal? And so it's an additional 60,000 properties in the urban services district
Yeah.
that will automatically be able to build an additional house up to 1,250 square feet with just a normal permitting. You won't need to go to your council member and go, hey, I want to build a DADU. You won't have to do anything other than go buy the permits and start building.
You can imagine what this looks like. There's some amendments, and we're working on some guardrails. But the reality is, this is actually worse than RNRL in that regard. RNL has to go through a process through planning and the council person, so the guardrails are relatively good, well structured. Here, it's carte blanche. You can do it, and then when you can imagine rebuilding or building a new house and building this with it. You can, in essence, have, you have to live in it. The owner of the house and the DADU have to be one and the same. So I did ask that
just the owner. But that owner could be private equity,
right? And that's our biggest problem
and so that's what's happening. I mean, private equity is coming from all over the country to Nashville because property values keep increasing at a strong rate. Rents are very high. There's strong demand still. And so the private equity is coming in. They're buying everything they can get their hands on. And if what they're buying is a single family home in the urban services district, if this passes, they'll automatically be able to build another home right there and rent them both.
Right. Well, and then RN and RL also, is when you look at the private equity. So you're looking at, I think 12% of our houses are owned by private equity now, or one of the largest in the United States. So all these good ideas aren't going to be managed by the people that we're going to want to make this affordable.
My biggest fear is just that Nashville loses its charm of what makes it Nashville. Right. We're already down. I mean, you can't drive downtown and feel like we haven't changed. I'm not saying that some of that change isn't good. But when you drive through the Vanderbilt area and Belmont and West Nashville, some of those areas that you live, some of those East Nashville neighborhoods that have the old craftsmen and just have that old neighborhood charm, and you feel comfortable there, like it's just a hometown. We're losing all of that day by day with each ranch or craftsman that's getting torn down. That's right,
and this is going to accelerate it. It just eliminates. Everybody thinks, well, we need affordability and attainable. I get it, but we can do it better, right?
I don't think either of these are going to be affordable or attainable.
No,
I can't think of really one thing that Metro government has done that has really given the result that they expected it to give. Phil Valentine would call it the unintended consequences of government.
Yeah.
And that's what I think Nashville's going to experience. So what's next for Tom Druffel? I know your term limit, at least as it is right now. Do you have any future plans in politics?
I'm going to be interested in, I have a granddaughter coming along for the first. And I love teaching, so I teach at Nashville State. Love doing it. I enjoy working with some youth programs, working on several, one with foster kids, one with people that are formerly homeless at the cookery. I'm working on programs that I've always valued. It's a lot more fun to be directly involved in things.
I'm sure.
I think I would like to, help whoever or try to find whoever that would really respect communities in the future. And try to support, some new leaders that have that we could trust and will come in and go, okay, your neighborhood, you can have it. We need to do a little bit more, but I think these should be genuinely individual conversations by neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Like, why do we have to put RNLs for everybody? We could say, hey, let's go to East Nashville. Let's go to, each area. What do you need? What do you want as citizens? Not here's what we're going to give you.
Right.
What do you think? It should be, let's talk to me a little bit about this, and let's find out what you want. So maybe in Madison, okay, you need this park, you need this, this, and this. Okay, let's work on that. West Meade, we'd love to have a little bit more of a sidewalk. We have not had any, and
Well, you guys are about to have a whole lot more of everything in West Meade.
Well, I think we've never had, except the only reason we have partial sidewalk is it's to nowhere, is because there was a school that's no longer there.
Yeah.
And so, the overall, though, is I'd love to see a real serious conversation of not here's what we're going to do, but what would you like to see for your neighborhood? And each of those should be by neighborhood, not like here's the zoning and you take it or leave it, or what do you think? Let's talk and ask what they would like, and then work around that. Anyhow, I'd like to see some kind of direction, find people that would willing to do that.
How do people find you on the socials if they want to get on your email list and that kind of thing? How do people find you?
Yeah, I have a regular newsletter, pretty frequent, pretty regular meetings. Our meetings get pretty significant. I think we sometimes are between 50 and 200. It's Thom, Thom, at Thom Druffel. That's our website. So Thom at THOMDRUFFEL.com. And you can get on there and you can subscribe to my newsletter. It's like 3,500, 4,000 now that I have subscriptions to. And what's interesting now with the zoning comments, and a lot of people have now from all over the city actually subscribing to my newsletter.
You're really, out of all the council members that I've really talked with, you're really probably the best at communicating what's going on in your district. And I just want to congratulate you for that. It's not easy, and being a council person is a full-time job with part-time pay, and just thanks for the service you've given your district.
Thanks. It's one of those things, if you're going to do something, you got to do it right, and it's the people.
I've already promised my wife I wasn't going to run for anything.
It's not what you think it's going to be, is all I have to say. It's a lot more work than you ever thought.
But it's one of those things, and one of the reasons why I've started this podcast is because I felt like people really weren't paying attention to the politics that's local. And this is a perfect example of what happens when you don't pay attention. And so I'm hoping that by continuing this podcast and with conversations like this, that we can work to get people more involved at the local level.
And you're absolutely right, Lonnie. If people were involved and understand the repercussions in their neighborhood, that's going to happen in the near future.
It affects your day-to-day life, what the Metro Council does, more than anything that Congress does, really, or that the president can do. What happens at your local council meetings has a more impact on your day-to-day life than anything that happens at the federal level.
One stat, we were 44th in the country and the most traffic. And about 3 or 4 years ago, we're now 11th. If that statistic doesn't tell you we've ignored what we need to do, I don't know when what will. And I've been in LA, Chicago, San Francisco, all these places, and driven. We are 11th. I can validate that.
Yeah, I could talk all day about transit, and we'll see what this next generation, this multimodal nonsense that they're going to give us is. But Tom, I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me the day after Thanksgiving, and I'm glad you had a good time with your family. And I hope you'll come back and give us an update on where things are.
Good. I'm glad to. Thanks, Lonnie.
All right. Thanks. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of You're So Right. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, and everywhere you find podcasts. Have a good night.
Booyah. Oh, yeah. Good. Hopefully that went okay.
In Nashville streets where dreams take flight, Tennessee's pride shines bright, oh so right. From the mountains to the river's edge, hard working values, we won't let them get us wrong. The sun sets over fields of golden wheat, patriotism's fire will never retreat. From the capital to every small town, conservative values, we stand our ground. With every step we walk in stride, for freedom and justice we won't hide. Our voices echo loud and clear. In Tennessee we're standing strong and near. You're so right, you're so right. In Tennessee we're standing tall and tight. never rest. From the boardrooms to the schoolhouse doors, we fight for what's good, we'll never ignore. With every step we walk in stride, for freedom and justice we won't hide. Our voices echo loud and clear. In Tennessee we're standing strong and near. You're so right, you're so right. In Tennessee we're standing tall and tight. You're so right, yes, so right. Conservative values, you'll never shift. Conservative values will never shift.